Hello and welcome. We are creating a path to what matters with Mark Nepo. With over 1 million copies sold, Mark has moved and inspired readers and seekers all over the world with his #1 New York Times bestseller, The Book of Awakening. Beloved as a poet, teacher, and storyteller, Mark has been called one of the finest spiritual guides of our time, a consummate storyteller, and an eloquent spiritual teacher. His work is widely accessible and used by many, and his books have been translated into more than 20 languages. A best-selling author, he has published 22 books and recorded 15 audio projects. In 2015, he was given a Life Achievement Award by Age Nation. In 2016, he was named by Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit as one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people. And he was also chosen as one of OWN's, that's Oprah, Super Soul 100, a group of inspired leaders using their gifts and voices to elevate humanity. And in 2017, Mark became a regular columnist for Spirituality and Health magazine. His book, The Exquisite Risk, was listed by Spirituality and Practice as one of the best spiritual books of 2005, calling it one of the best books we've ever read on what it takes to live an authentic life. Can't wait to talk about that. Mark was part of Oprah Winfrey's The Life You Want tour in 2014 and has appeared several times with Oprah on her Super Soul Sunday program on OWN TV. He has also been interviewed by Robin Roberts on Good Morning America. He devotes his writing and teaching to the journey of inner transformation and the life of relationship. Welcome, Mark.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be with you, especially during these times.
Yeah, it's really interesting times right now, and we're going to have some good conversation about that. But I want to first ask you, what is your definition of a miracle?
Well, you may know from some of my writings, I'm 69, but in my 30s, I almost died from a rare form of lymphoma, which was really still here by a series of miracles. And I think that the largest miracle of all was that, we tend to think of miracles as extraordinary events, but almost dying and still blessed to be here scoured my lens of perception so that I can, most of the time, see that everything's a miracle. And so I've been blessed to be given, I think this is the reward for great love and suffering, if we can help each other get through, is that then we see through the lens of the miraculous, that actually it's not extraordinary, it's everywhere.
Wow, what a beautiful definition. Yeah, it's not extraordinary, it's everywhere. It's something that we all have the ability to access and we all have available to us, but sometimes we need a situation to wake us up to that, right? Like there's these unexpected miracles or things that happen that wake us up to, oh, life is actually a miracle in itself. Yeah.
Well, we have, there are many ways, but two primary ways that human beings grow is by willfully shedding, the way snakes and crabs shed their skin. And that's through the work of practice and introspection and care and generosity. And we're broken open. And those are kind of like spiritual X and Y chromosomes. We will, and if we're unwilling to shed, don't worry, we'll be broken open.
Right. Yeah. I call it the whispers or the 2x4, right? Like,
right.
You got one or you're going to get the other. And you get an opportunity to have the first one several times before you get hit with the 2x4.
Well, yeah, I think that's always a combination for all of us. There's a great old Roman saying that says the fates lead those who are willing, those who are not, they drag. So we're going one way or the other.
Yeah. Awesome. So what, we know a little bit about your story, but I'd love for you to share with everyone here, for those that may not have heard of you before or don't know, but a little bit about what you're here to share on a deeper level with humanity, and what brought you to creating this truth. I know you just talked about the cancer, and I don't think that was a part of it, but I'd love to just hear a little bit more about what you're here to share.
Well, I think we're all here to be ourselves completely. And the way that a fire gives off heat and light, if we are who we are, then that light and warmth emanates. So all I have to share is whatever comes off of me from when I can be authentic. And I think that, I often say when I start retreats, what I offer are examples, not instructions. I don't have any answers. I don't have anything figured out. We're all comparing notes on what it is to be here in this mystery. And I think that, so certainly my cancer journey, I was born with a poet's sensibility, which led me deeper into my own spirit, and was teaching at Albany University when I went through my cancer journey in my 30s. And that turned me inside out and upside down, of course. So still blessed to be here. I think a couple of things happened to me that were archetypal, but very powerful. One is that, I was raised Jewish. I'm Jewish by heritage. I have a great tie to that heritage, European Jewish. And, but I'm a student of all paths. And, because during that time, I was blessed to have people from all traditions, all faiths, and non-faiths, including scientists, atheists, everyone you can imagine, were kind enough to offer me some kind of help or blessing. So blessed to still be here. I woke up on the other side, and I was not, and all these years later, I'm still not wise enough to know what worked and what didn't. And so I was challenged to believe in everything. And so all of my books, all of my work, which my books are not, these books are inquiries, and the books are the trail of those inquiries. And so all of my work has been about affirming what I feel is the common center of all paths, lifting up the unique gifts of each. And, I often think, that it's the poet in me that sees. It's the philosopher in me that tries to make sense of what I see, but it's the cancer survivor in me that tries to offer anyone who reads my work or who works with me how to personalize that and apply it to your own life. So my work is centered as a teacher, as a writer, as a retriever, I like to say, is really centered on helping people discover and inhabit their own gifts and their own wisdom.
Beautiful. And one of the things that you said was, you talked about the core, or the source of all of the things that. Yeah. Can you share a little bit about what you feel that is, and how, and about the core or the source that you've come to know in your lifetime?
There is, and all the traditions speak about this differently. I have a piece in the Book of Awakening called Unlearning Back to God, and there are 1,000 names for that unnameable unity of life that is in everything. And when we can be, you could say that, I like how the Hindu tradition speaks about it, because it makes it very clear. And then every tradition has different names for it. But, in the Hindu tradition, there's a trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Now, Brahma is that unformed unity of life, that creative force that's everywhere. And then Vishnu is the life of forms. And then that, that unbelievable spirit, universal spirit enters everything. You, me, the necklace you're wearing, the light behind you, the beautiful picture on the wall or mandala that's on the wall, in my dog, And so we then become a container, a limited container for an unlimited portion of spirit for however long we're here. And then Shiva, which is known as the transformer, but we in the West call it the destroyer, because whatever the form is, it has to dissolve. Whether it's a tree that turns to mulch, or it's a person who dies, or the wood table that eventually falls of its own weight and wear and breaks, the form falls away. Now, when you're the form, you're being destroyed. So that's why we call it the destroyer. But from a larger perspective than one person or one living thing, it's a transformer, because that energy then, which is immortal, is released back into the universal field of unnameable spirit, and then it all keeps going again. and again and again. And so the question is, that each of us, and what we call that, and we tend to call it in the West, that portion of spirit we carry, is our soul. Christians talk about it as the Holy Ghost. Jewish people talk about it as the ineffable, that don't even want to name God. Atman, Dharma, Sufis call it Kalb, Quakers call it the friend, the unnameable friend. So there's 1,000 names for it. But the real question is, it is so rare to be here at all. How can we be a good steward of the portion of universal spirit that we are blessed to carry in the time that we're here?
That's a powerful question. Very powerful question. How can we do that?
Well, that's the whole, that every, this is the paradox, or the difference between progress and incarnation. We certainly can learn from generation to generation. That's progress. Okay.
Yeah.
But every generation and every soul that comes to live on earth has to go through the same incarnation. And that's our journey to, and a lot of what my new book, The Book of Soul, is about is that, the central metaphor on the kind of doorway to the book, 52 ways of living what matters, because I like to offer readers to slow down. So there's a chapter for each week over a year. Just, you don't have to read it all at once. Like, that's not the idea. To live with it. So the image or the metaphor there is that, we all know that physically, of course, we go through labor, our mothers carry us, and we're birthed into the world. And then we enter a second labor, which is our lifetime of experience, which births the soul on earth. And that's everybody's journey. And again, I don't have answers, but I open with the book, the different parts of the journey we all face, but we all live differently, so we can share our learnings.
I'd like to dive deeper into this idea of the first birth and the second birth. You kind of touched on it here. This idea of we must be spiritually born. Like I have many times heard of people talk about like the dark night of the soul, or that moment when they had the thing in their lives that completely transformed everything for them. Is that kind of what you're talking about as that second birth? What do you mean by this?
Yeah. So every person on earth will be given the opportunity to be dropped into the depth of life. Now, often, as we talked about willfully shedding and breaking open, often it's something that does jar us or break us open. And that's when we talk about the dark night of the soul, which really, to me, is about a transformational period where all of the ways that we know to be up to that point are taken out from under us, and we're given the chance to live more deeply, more foundationally, more elementally. Now, it doesn't always have to be catastrophic. It can just as easily be beauty, love, being seen and held completely for the first time, surprise, wonder. It doesn't, it can be as simple as seeing, having a transformational moment. The poet Stanley Kunitz lived to be 100, amazing poet. And as a young man, he was he knew he was a poet, but he was unclear if he could live as a poet. And of course, everyone in his life was telling him, no, get a job, do this, do that. And he talks about in his early life, in his 20s, walking across a field at dusk in Pennsylvania, somewhere in Pennsylvania. And a whole flock of geese just flew in the twilight over him. And that moment, beyond words, beyond logic, that was his dark, or you could say light night of the soul.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, it doesn't have to be, for me, it was cancer, but you don't deify it. Cancer is a disease. There's nothing special about it.
Right.
And so this leads to the other truth, which is that what opens us is never as important as what is opened in us.
what opens us is never as important as what opened in us. That's really powerful, because so many people do talk about the event or the tragedy or the experience. And I rarely hear people talk about what you're just saying. The other side is that you can have that same awakening or that same opening through a grace or a beauty or a love or something like that. And then so it's not about what has opened us, but what's opening within us.
Well, and I think one of the challenges for all human beings is, I believe very much that living our full humanity leads us to our spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't bypass one or the other. We have to feel both. We have to
Mm-hmm.
feel the things that open us and go to where they open. And there's two things I would love to share about that. One is there was a Japanese poet, Masai, and he has this beautiful haiku. He says, "My barn having burned to the ground, I can see the moon more completely.
Mm.
My barn having burned to the ground, I can see the moon more completely." And now we're not exempt from feeling, I actually, in a previous marriage earlier in my life, my father-in-law was a farmer. And I in the middle of the night one time, I watched as that barn that he built as a young man, and he was in his 70s at that point, lived to be 89, had caught fire and was burning.
Mm.
And the pain of watching what he built and lived in and cared for years burn right, he couldn't save it, down to the ground. And not or, and we have to feel that. That's our human journey. There's no escaping that. And my barn having burned down, I can see the moon more completely.
There was a gift in it.
And so what are the barns in our lives that we construct that inevitably will be burned down, that we can see more clearly? And you could say, well, if you didn't burn the barn, would you see? No, it's not that simple. We have to build, and it has to come down. This
Mm.
is life's journey. So the metaphor, I've always, I was born with kind of seeing in metaphor. That's just the way, before I knew what that was. But one of the metaphors that's very helpful to me, which I wouldn't have seen had I not gone through my cancer journey, but it's the metaphor of a flute. And I don't mean a flute, not the beautiful precision flutes that are made by music companies today, where everyone is identical and perfect pitch. And I mean like the original flutes. I mean flutes. And so this is also an example when an image comes along to teach us, then that becomes our teacher. So when I first came upon this, which I'll share in a minute, it led me, I had to say, I got to learn about these things. So it led me to do some research and discover that original flutes made out of mammoth bone. Big mammoth were like huge, extinct now creatures, like bear, like moose, like huge creatures. That's what a mammoth, that's where the word mammoth, meaning big, comes from that. But they crossed through Northern Europe. And in that time, 70,000 years ago, someone with survival being that hard, someone paused and carved holes and hollowed out a mammoth bone to create the first flute. Now, boy, I'd love to interview that person.
Right?
Because that tells us that that music was a necessity.
Mm.
So much for them being primitive. That's
Mm.
our label.
Yeah.
But so what is the metaphor from that is that no two original flutes that were carved were exactly the same. And therefore no two songs that they released were exactly the same.
Mm.
And so the metaphor is that every soul on earth is like a hand-carved flute. Experience carves holes in us so that the breath of spirit can release our song. Now, I don't have to, I'm not saying, I'm not deifying suffering. It's like talking about gravity. It just is.
Right.
It
Yeah.
just is. You don't have to look for holes to be carved. We'll all get our holes carved. But the courage, the inner courage, is if a hole is being carved in you, is to let it be carved all the way through so your song can be released. Because the
Mm.
worst position of all is to be half carved and feel the pain and have no song.
Mm. Mm. what powerful imagery. And you can definitely tell why you are a author and a poet, because the words, it just, they hit you in this way. And I think that we're really in an interesting time right now where we're getting those carvings, right? Like we're in this precarious, unprecedented times with COVID-19, and this is an opportunity for us to experience this. You know, we're falling, we get up again and again, and we have these challenges right now, right? So how
Yeah.
can we use these challenges? And you know, the suggestion of what you're saying about the flute and being able to let our song come through to both survive and thrive.
Well, one of the things, and I was just reflecting on this the other day, is that most, I wouldn't say all, because you never say all, but it's hard for me to think of a musical instrument. Most musical instruments are hollowed in order so that there's music. And we are being hollowed.
Mm.
Humanity is being hollowed. And the question is, in time, will we just stay dark and hollow? Or will we be able to help each other heal and have a new music come forward? Now, in the midst of this, it's been really powerful for me that so much of what I've been experiencing, I know so many people emotionally and psychologically, really echoes collectively what I experienced, and I'm sure other people who've been through near-death experiences did individually.
Mm.
I mean, every day is like a roller coaster. When we're in crisis or we're in adversity, the 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 more subtle choices we are asked to make in quote ordinary time get accentuated. They're more acute. They're in relief. And so, always people who are well initially want to see people who are ill as, well, that's not me. God bless them, but that's not me. No, it is all of us. And really, whoever is suffering at the time has a wisdom the rest of us need. And we need to ask people, what is it you see for what you've been through that I haven't seen yet?
Mm.
What is it you've learned? We need to ask this of our elders. We seldom do. You've lived your whole life. What do you see from the climb of all those years that can help the right? What wisdom do you have for the rest of us after all you've been through? Yeah. And so I think that one of the things that right now is how do we feed more than our fear in our time alone? How do we feed more than our fear? Fear has a legitimate place, but this is where the Buddhist way of living and seeing has a very powerful, simple and yet hard. It's the simplest and maybe the hardest practice of all, and that is the practice of seeing things as they are.
Mm.
Because we as human beings, by our nature, we tend to inflate and deflate our sense of ourselves and our situation. So we're always having to right size where we are, to right size what's going on. And so right now, fear is the other virus
Mm-hmm.
that's going everywhere. And so, my challenge, I'm not exempt, all of us, how do we discern during the day what are things as they are, and how can I then not fill the rest of it with exaggerated fear, but fill the rest of my time with light and living, and let it all mix so that my eyes and ears and heart can be clear.
Do you have any suggestions for everyone about how they can release fear right now during this time?
Well, again, I can only offer some examples, not instructions,
Yeah.
just because of my own struggle. I feel like, so let me give you an example. I'll just give a very detailed example. Just during these, every day, and I experienced this during my cancer journey too, but every day, sometime during the day, I've come to expect it, a little bubble of fear will catch me. I don't know exactly where it'll be or what it might be something I hear on the news, or it might come out sideways. You know, our dog, who's very healthy, she got sick the other night, so it all went there. You know, what if we got to take her to the vet and we can't go out, and how are we going to deal with it? You know, and then on and on and on. And so, so like a shiver or a sneeze every day, I don't like it, but I've come to say, oh, I know there's going to be this little bubble of fear that's going to hook me. So when it comes, my job is to be like a flag. A flag doesn't hold on to the wind, it lets it go. If it held onto the wind, it would rip. So our instinct, our reflex when I'm afraid, when all of us are afraid, is to clutch. And now, then I have to open. So the first thing that I would offer anyone, myself, is when I clutch and close, is to open after I close. To lean in when I'm pushed away. How do I do that? Well, the first thing is breathe. All the traditions, breathe. And then I try to hold nothing back. What does that mean? That means I give my full presence, because as we said earlier, everything is miraculous. I give my full attention and presence to the nearest thing before me. Right now, I'm looking out my study window and it's a bud. It's a little bit misting or raining today here. So there's a little bit of rain on a bud on the end of a new branch. So, you know, and it could be the spoon in your tea. Doesn't matter. Everything has a gift and an instruction, and that life flow we were talking about earlier, that unnameable spiritual electricity that's in everything, and how we unlock it. You know, you take an electrical plug and you plug it in. For us, that's presence. When we give our presence to the nearest thing long enough, that's, you know, if we give it long enough, then all of a sudden what happens? We have these extra real moments. Oh, that's starting to kind of glow. Well, that's because we've been present enough to plug into the universal flow of life, in which it can bring us strength, energy, perspective. So I always try, when I feel that moment of fear, to not keep working it in my head, but to keep, you know, but to let go of it and give my full attention. You know, there's a small poem of mine that, and my poems are teachers for me. I retrieve them and then I have to work with them. It's not like I know where they're going or let me share this. No, I discover them and then I grow from them. So here's a poem, small poem, that's been very helpful to me, called Practicing. As a man in his last breath drops all he is carrying, each breath is a little death that can set us free.
Wow.
Let me say it again.
Yeah, each breath is a little death that can set us free. Yes, please repeat it. It was beautiful.
Practicing. As a man in his last breath drops all he is carrying, each breath is a little death that can set us free. So when I'm hooked by fear, by that bubble of fear, I can think it as far as I can take it, but most of the time it doesn't work. All that happens when I do that is I get more tangled. It gets worse. It doesn't get better. I think if I think it through one more time, it'll get better. It never works. Not for me. So as a man in his last breath, all I can do is drop it, which may be one of the most quiet courages we can lean into.
Yeah.
Drop it. Drop it and give our presence to the nearest thing.
Let's talk a little bit about that presence because I think that's really powerful, right? We talk about staying in the moment or being present, and yet it seems to be a challenge for most people. Do you have a daily technique that you can share to help us to stay in that presence? Like when once you drop it and stay present, how do you stay present?
Well, I think it is returning to the moment, and there's a lot of talk about that. And let's talk about that a little bit. Um, Being in the moment is not just, oh, forget the future, the past, forget my responsibilities. I can just really float here. Being in the moment at first starts with where we are, of course, and attuned to my life, what's around me, and then the life around me. But when we can stay present, it also connects us to everything that's happening in this moment everywhere in life. It's not just limited to my life. And then we are a part of the network of life force. So to keep staying present. And one of the rewards for being present in the moment is not just all of a sudden uh, feeling where I am. It's uh, that presence is like the admission ticket or the tumblers in a mystical lock that allow us to experience oneness.
Mm.
The reward for being in the moment is experiencing oneness. You know, the great Sufi poet Ghalib has a great line. He says that joy for the raindrop is entering the lake. Joy for the raindrop is entering the lake. And the raindrop doesn't lose its identity. It it lets go of its boundaries and joins the lake. And when we are in that moment, when we can be in the moment and let our presence keep going, then like that raindrop, we join the oneness of life. And therefore, the reward for that is resilience is accepting the strength from everything that's not us.
Mm. I never thought of it that way. Accepting the strength from everything that is not us.
Therefore, I open myself and I receive that, accepting the strength from everything that's not us. So I feel that, and I've learned this, that when I can, that's why I believe so much in the human journey, when I can be who I am in whatever I'm feeling and experiencing to the bottom of my personality, then I trip into the well of all personality.
Mm.
And then by being thoroughly me, I also have access to all the energy that's everywhere else.
And when that idea of being thoroughly you and that authenticity and that is that really like sitting into uh, who you are at your core, at your soul level, or is that like your personality?
Well, let me give you an example, and then we'll go to another metaphor. So, my father, who passed away 7 years ago, he was 93. He was a master woodworker. He loved the sea. He built a 30-foot ketch sailboat that I spent a lot of my youth on. Towards the end of his life, he was in the hospital, of course, and he had had a few strokes, and I was with him, and a blessing. I didn't live nearby, but when I would visit him and spend as much time as I could, and so this one time I was there within the last 6 months of his life, and there I was, as many people are, and maybe some are right now. Um, I was, feeding him applesauce with a spoon. And, my heart it was beautiful. It was sad. It was heartbreaking. It was everything. It was not a quiet meditative, there was noise in the hall and there were other patients around and, it was in the middle of life. But there we were in the eye of this humanity, being human ourselves. And And all of a sudden, my heart was pounding in my throat, and my whole life was in putting that spoon in his mouth.
Mm.
And all of a sudden it was a practice. Instantly, all of a sudden it was like, I want to make sure that this doesn't hit his teeth, that it doesn't interrupt his breathing. And we got into this little very dance of him taking the applesauce off the spoon, and I was slipping it in and out, and tears are coming down my face, and there we are, right? And then all of a sudden, who would have guessed, I tripped into a moment of wonder.
Mm.
A moment of wonder. There we were. And as I'm feeling this and feeling that I'm having, like, without words, a lifetime conversation with my father around this suddenly discovered ritual, I realized I tripped into because I was nowhere but where I was,
Mm-hmm.
because I was putting everything in my heart into that moment through my love for him. I tripped suddenly into the moment of every adult child who ever fed a dying parent. And I was magically and mysteriously there and not alone. And so resilience is accepting the strength of all that is not us by being thoroughly who we are.
Wow. That is incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for it. I've never actually considered or even looked at something in that way. And so I know that our audience is going to is super grateful for what you've been sharing, Mark. Before we go on, I have few more questions. I want to let everybody know that they can go to the link below, and you're going to see a link where you can get a couple of excerpts from two of Mark's books. From the Book of the Soul and the Two Tribes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Book of the Soul, because that is Mark's new book that's actually being released tomorrow. And Mark, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your book and where we'll put the link to get the book below.
Sure.
Also.
Yeah, the book is available everywhere, Amazon, bookstore, anywhere. It's from St. Martin's Essentials, St. Martin's Press, and which has been exciting to work with them. And so, as I mentioned earlier, this book is hard to believe. It's my 22nd book. I can't even believe I'm saying that sentence, beyond anything I ever imagined. And it's because I write about what I need to learn and not what I know. If I wrote about what I knew, I would have written very little. But this book is over a lifetime, there are these insights and teachers and moments. And this book surprised me in that it was weaving things together across the years. Like, oh, I learned this back then and this over here. Oh, I see. They actually go together and point to something else. Oh, so the book is set around, there's 52 chapters, an invitation not to rush through it, but to have it be a conversation, a chapter a week with your life. Read it, be with it, go out into the days, see how your life speaks to it, and come back and be in this conversation over a year. So I will be... in the times that we're in, I'm starting to do some online events, and a little, very soon, in about a week or so, of May 15th through 16th, I'll be doing an online event through the Sophia Institute in Charleston, which will be the first public teaching out of the Book of Soul. And you can go through my website or to the Sophia Institute Charleston to find out how to register for that. And in June, there'll soon be a link up. I'm going to be offering a 3-part webinar over 3 Mondays. That will also be out of this book and other books.
Okay.
So those will be ways that we can journey together.
Yeah, let's do that. And I'm going to even take that one more step and say, Mark, I'm going to challenge you to maybe think about creating a 1-year group where you walk everybody through your new Book of Souls, one week at a time.
Oh, thank you.
I think we could put together an amazing group and walk the world through the book 1 week at a time. I don't know. I might maybe challenge you to do that.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, yeah. I think we'll have to. So look out. You never know what might be coming up even more uh, with all of this beautiful thing. And I can't wait for. I'm going to get my copy of the Book of the Soul and go below and grab the excerpts from the 2 books that he's offering up to you right now as our gift to you for joining us. You know that you've talked about staying present and letting go of the fear, right? That the bubble and things. But is there any like ritual practice or thing that you cannot live without?
Well, let's get very simple. And again, let me offer an example, not an instruction. Two things. You know, one is, let's stick with this one, and that is every day. I when I wake, I do 3 things as a ritual. And so what I invite people to do is not do what I do, but see what are there in your day that you can give your care to that will help center you for the day ahead, which is very important in these times. So for me, the first thing I do is I open the blinds. And as I do that, I am aware that I am letting light in. The first thing I do is let light in. The second thing I do is I care for something living. I take care of our dog. I feed her. First thing I do is hug her, So I'm caring for something alive. And the third thing I do is I'm a morning person. My wife, Susan, is a night person. So I always have her coffee ready for when she gets up so that I'm doing something for someone I love. So every day I start by letting light in, caring for something living, and doing something for someone I love. And it's not, and the reward for that is that I'm centering in that stream of life force by doing that, which helps me meet what the day will bring. So I invite people, the difference between ritual and habit is our presence.
Yeah.
If I'm speeding along, which happens some days, all of a sudden I'm just opening the blinds. I'm not letting light in. And so I have to be aware to say, oh, wait a minute. No, this is why I'm doing this. Let's try this. Back up. Let's try it again.
Yeah.
Let's try it again so it stays a ritual and not a habit.
Oh, love that. And so simple, right? Like simple things like letting the light in, caring for something living, caring for someone you love, just simple places and that bring you even back to presence in that moment too, right? Like you're here, you're right now, you're not worried about what's going on.
Yes, absolutely. So let me leave you with a small poem of mine, and it's just a stanza.
Okay.
The mystery is that whoever shows up when we dare to give has exactly what we need hidden in their trouble.
Beautiful. Awesome. So I have 2 more questions and then we'll be done. Thank you. If you're on your deathbed and you have one truth that you can leave for all of friends, family, and humanity to know, what would you say?
Oh, that heaven is here on earth. That the greatest challenge, courage, beauty we can do is to be exactly who we were put here to be and no one else, and to open our heart to everything.
Yes. Heaven is here on earth, and open our heart to everything. Beautiful. And if you could do one thing in this world before you pass to the next realm, Mark, what would you do?
Oh, what I'm doing. I don't have any bucket list. I just want to keep being here, letting light in, caring for each other. It's all right here. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, everyone. Again, go to the link below and grab your excerpts of the 2 books, and go to the link and grab the Book of Souls so that you can start your 52-week journey. And thank you, Mark, so much for your magic and your miracles and your presence today. It's been an honor.